Hello, so this video is cultural presentation Cherokee traditional foods. So if it's part of the culture is the food, so we're gonna look at that. So thanks for watching.
Cherokee Cultural Enrichment. Um, Tonight we have Miss Edith M. Knight, Cherokee National Treasure. Edith M. Ketcher was born in 1939 to William and Lula Jackson Ketcher of the Piney community near Stillwell. She's the youngest of 6 children. She had 3 brothers and 2 sisters. She has 4 girls, 6 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. She attended grade school at Chalk Bluff School, walking 2 miles to school, and completed 2 grades in the same year, 7th and 8th. She did her homework by kerosene lamplight at night. When she went to Stillwell High School, she had to walk 2 miles in a different direction from home to catch the bus. They caught the bus on the road now known as Orchard Road. She enjoyed school, graduated high school in 1957, and wanted to go to college. There was no transportation and no money, so she didn't get to go to college. So she couldn't go to college, so she got married. She married Owen Knight in 1958, and their daughter Lisa was born in 1959, Karen in 1961, with 2 more girls joining their family, Diane and Nikki. She went to work at Stillwell Foods. She always had the desire to be a lab technician. She got her chance to become a lab tech after working at Stillwell Foods for 3 years. Her opportunity came from their need for a lab tech for thermal processing. Stillwell Foods set up a class for her with Mr. George Clark in NSU to learn microbiology, and then attend the University of Arkansas to learn thermal processing for canned goods. She became a lab tech for Stillwell Foods. She served as registered EMT for 2 years before Robert Funeral Service. EMTs worked with the doctors and law enforcement. The EMT service was started by Reverend Scott Bread, pastor of the Indian Methodist Church in Stillwell. They had to go to Pryor for phone conferences and classes. They had to be and were deputized. Edith and Owen Knight, her sister and husband Zona and Richard Flute, Reverend Scott Bread, his wife and son, another lady, Eunice Hawks, all worked for the EMT service at night. They would stay at the church. They would work all day, sleep at the church when on call. Her mother taught her to sew, how to gather and prepare traditional foods. She loves to sew. She looked over clothing, and people would tell her about her clothing. When her grandchildren came along, she started making traditional clothes for them. She was designated Cherokee National Treasure for traditional clothing in 1992 by Chief Wilma Mankiller. She had won several food judging contests. Her hobbies include sewing, cooking, fishing, and camping, going to yard sales, and trying new foods. She always enjoys learning new skills. Ladies and gentlemen, Edith Knight.
I'd like to share that award with all of the elders or anyone that is. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to keeping alive our heritage of arts and crafts, language, or anything to do with our Cherokee. Today, we gathered hickory nuts, and this a good friend of mine lives down in Cherokee, Mary Jo, and she has I found out that by going to one of her yard sales some time back, I found out that she had some nice hickory nuts in her yard. And so I've been working with her, getting her hickory nuts all these years. There are different varieties of hickory nuts, and the one that I like that she's got is called Mocker hickory nuts. that's called, I can't think of it. I'm sorry? Nutmeg, yes. And of course, you know, there's pig nuts, and we don't want to have anything to do with those. Those are so bitter. When they fall from the tree, they will, when it's time to harvest them, they fall from the tree, and as they hit, the outer shell will most likely will come apart. Oh yeah, like this, and get them out, let them dry. They've got to dry before you can make anything from them. And after they've dried, you crack them, get them down to a smaller size, and you just keep cracking them until they get down to, if it's a good nut meat in there, they'll get greasy. What you crack will get greasy. And then you put nut meat in there, they'll get greasy. What you crack will get greasy. And then you take what you got mashed up, and that's where you get your hickory nut ball. Kanachi ball, they call it. A lot of them will make them or gather them, put them in the freezer. That's what this, I was lucky to find these that someone had in their freezer so that we could make some kanachi tonight. Because what we gather would be too green to do anything with today. So you put this in boiling water, and it'll just come apart. It'll break apart real easy. You boil it for, I don't know, maybe, gotta boil it at least 10 minutes so we can get rid of all the bacteria that may have, you know, gathered on there during handling and when we pick them up and all that kind of stuff. So I cooked this today about 45 minutes. I wanted it to get a little thicker, but it didn't. Well, after you get it cooked, after you get your kanachi ball cooked, you start straining it to get the hulls out. And I put it through like a colander first to get the bigger stuff out, and then I put it through a sieve and make the slurry with. And I go ahead and cook this, and it begins to get a little thick after you cook it for a while. And after that, you can either put it with your rice or hominy. A lot of people like it with hominy, with salt. But my family likes rice with sugar. So we're gonna let you taste of some here in a little bit. We'll put it back here in the back. You have to make a big bunch. With one ball, we'll make that much. Put holes in there. But if you can see this, usually when it gets cold, this juice on there will thicken up. And if you have any left, to go in the refrigerator. But a long time ago, well, I don't know how long, but to get these hickory nuts down to a usable size, they would pound the nuts, get them to a smaller one, and then put them in there and pound it. And these blocks are called canones. And I'm sure this has probably a name too, but I just call it pounder. I don't know what the Cherokee name for it is. Do they have a name? But you just keep pounding it till you get it down to the consistency that you want. And then you start sieving. And it's ready to put together to make your kanachi. I brought some with hominy. I finally found me a place where I could buy some cracked corn. Looked all over the place. It don't be everywhere. That's one thing that Walmart doesn't have. But a lot of people like salt on theirs, on with the corn. So, Kevin?
She might not be up to it tonight.
Kevin, would you pound a little bit there? Oh. Here's Sue.
We need a nice, strong volunteer.
Sue's going to. Sue will do it.
You want to do it on the shorter one or the taller one?
It'll probably take a month for them to dry good after you harvest them in the fall. Can you imagine that building your muscles up? That's good. That's probably good. We went around and looked at some that other people had, these blocks or the canons. So Owen, my husband back there, he made this one for me. And I see that some of them have a bigger bowl. And this one just makes it easier for me to pound with the smaller bowl in there. Does any of you like to pound some of this and see what it feels like?
Don't use it like a bat. They're showing pictures behind you, Miss Edith, of today.
Oh, really? Well,
Now, you don't hit it with this big end?
No,
See, I would think I would
no.
do like this.
That's the weight. The weight.
Oh, okay. Now I'm just gonna. No. Hey, now I got a little more in here now.
That's why they have the bigger bowl, I'm sure.
How do you keep it from going everywhere?
Well, you just,
That's the bad part.
yeah.
Really? Because, man, I was getting ready to get serious. Oh, man, that's worse. I'm getting worse. I better quit. There's not going to be anything left. Let me go back to this, and y'all quit ragging on how hard I'm hitting it.
Small little bitty strokes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I noticed. Don't rub it in, Mark. I'll clean it up. I don't want.
All right.
Most of the time it's done outdoors, it's not done indoors.
Yeah. We'll have to do it on the porch. Maybe.
Somebody else is going to have to straighten this pile up. I don't think I did all that great. Man, that's hard to do, you think?
Just so they can see what they used to do with it. Thank you. I have another friend that makes the balls. He puts some. He says he has a bucket with a rock in it, so that he can just keep it pounding and they don't go all over the place. So it's just.
And I have a friend that just uses the rock, two rocks, one's dug out.
And you can also do the crack your own corn that way. That's good. So that's about the process of from tree to pot. Does anybody have a question? Yes.
Plenty of trees still. I had a guy ask me last week about trees, and I never really thought about it. And I said, there used to be, I'm sorry. Excuse me. The question was, I had a person ask me like a couple weeks ago if there was still plenty. And I said, you know what, I'm going to ask somebody if there's still plenty of trees, because I was unaware if they were or not.
that's what I've done. I've asked several people, have you got hickory trees on your place, you know, or, you know, and they don't have it. But,
Seemed like they used to be everywhere, but I hadn't really paid attention. So.
75 feet?
yeah.
Seemed like they used to be everywhere, but I hadn't really paid attention.
Are some of the nuts are bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you just have to look at them and you kind of determine if they're bad or not?
That's the reason I like to crack them into the smaller size,
Okay.
and I can tell,
Pitch it out if it's bad.
And obviously, your sieve doesn't get rid of,
and then I can tell,
sieve doesn't get rid of all of the shells, so how do you? And obviously, your sieve doesn't get rid of all of the, your sieve doesn't get rid of all of the shells, so how do you?
I do it in
handle
a
that?
two-step. I take just a colander, and that'll get the larger hulls, and then I go down to just a sifter like, and that'll get it.
Okay.
And that's after you run it through both sieves.
What was the name of the big hickory that it is?
Mocker. Uh-huh. And I found another one down on her place, and I don't know what it's called, but it has a funny shape to it. It's huge, but it's, look how tall that one is. But I don't know what it's called. I need to find somebody that knows about hickory nut trees.
There's one of these has a comparison of the two.
That one right there.
Oops, sorry.
See how they're different? They're tall.
Pass them around.
And then this is the little nutmeg tree.
Okay. This was nutmeg.
That's the nutmeg. That one, it may crack easier, but it don't have very much nut meat in it. This one, the reason I like this one is because it's got a lot of nut meat in it, and it has a better flavor. We tried one of those longer ones, and it's about like the mockers in flavor, but it has a bigger compartment.
Yeah, bitter, really bitter.
I wish I had one sawed in half so you could see it, but I don't. I don't recognize the trees even that much. I think they're kind of getting like the birds, the things we get with birds. The little, what I was trying to call them.
I'm sorry, I was talking to him, I didn't hear what you were talking about.
No, the little nut in it is in a bird.
Oh, chestnuts.
Yeah, chestnuts are bigger though, but these are,
Here's another one.
chinkapin.
How can you not forget a chinkapin?
I don't know. We used to go by this big old tree before we go to school, and we'd fill our pockets with those chinkapins and
Throw them at each other.
yeah, well, no, we ate them. Had to sneak around and eat them in class. But there's a few people that's trying to bring the chinkapin back.
Is the hickory nut the only one you use? Can you use black walnut or something?
The question is hickory the only tree that you could not?
It would certainly have a different flavor. So, and the walnut would be a lot more oil in it. It'd be pretty oily. They're better in cookies or something like that.
Do you guys have any more questions for her about the knuchy?
Do you know any other recipes you usually serve it?
You have to have the mic.
Are there any other ways that you know to serve it, any other recipes?
I don't have any, or I don't know of any. This is just all, it's all the family wants right here.
Years ago, several years ago, a lot of the elders would make hickory nut pie. Instead of like a pecan pie, they would make a hickory nut pie. So you can make pies with them, but you have to sit and pick out the goodies to do the same as you would a pecan pie.
I bet it would be good.
Guys, if you don't mind, if you would hold off on talking till we break, I would appreciate it because we're still trying to film. Sorry, thank you.
Miss Knight, how much would you have to gather in order to make one connection ball?
I'd say maybe a half of a Walmart bag.
About a gallon, probably a gallon load. Yes, in Oklahoma, we understand that measurement size.
Well,
That picture where they had the wheelbarrow,
Yeah.
Yes.
that one, they said,
Excuse me. I'll be
this picture right here, this picture with the wheelbarrow, they figured, Mary Jo told them that she thought they would get 28 balls out of that. So that's how many it would take to make 28 for one, probably that corner right there.
They usually, they usually store the knuchy ball. That's with the shell and the pulp in the freezer.
yes,
And then when you're ready to serve it,
Yes.
You would,
yeah, thaw it and boil it.
break it up and boil it.
The grape dumplings. Okay. Are you going to talk to him about that for a minute, please?
Oh.
So, Kevin, we need her to explain the grape dumplings.
So are there any other questions? We're going to have samples later of knuchy. So now Sue Wolf is going to talk about grape dumplings.
Wait a minute, I have a question now. Before, can I ask something? before you
Sure.
go on? Sorry.
That's fine.
I guess my question is it an acquired taste? Did you like it from the time you were small?
It being sweet, I'm sure.
It is sweet.
Yes,
tasty.
Now, you can use the corn grits and put salt on it. That's the way a lot of people like it too. But I prefer the sweet, I guess.
So children seem to like it.
Yes. I know one of my great-granddaughters, she'll say, "Big Grand, when are you going to make us some more knuchy?"
Is knuchy considered a delicacy for the, I know our neighbors consider it a delicacy. Is there a place where you can buy knuchy balls?
Just usually from individuals that have made them themselves, or they'll put them in the freezer. Like I said, I was lucky to find a friend that had some in the freezer. I've looked everywhere. No, I don't have any left. Don't have any left. And he happened to have maybe 8 or 10. So, but he had counted them himself.
How much would a Knutsy ball go for?
Usually around $10.
$12?
There's a question back there, Kevin, as well.
That's what I was gonna say, it's kinda hard to find with the price, some of them it's $12, $15, $20, depending on the size. But a lot of families have them for their traditional meals.
It depends on the size of the ball too. You may get a small one, you know, you just have to kind of look to see what size. Now this is probably about an average size, the one I have here.
And that probably weighs maybe 6 ounces, maybe half a pound, I think.
That was my question about price.
Well, great, thank you very much. Now Sue's going to talk about grape dumplings. We have lots of samples, right?
Okay, on a grape dumpling, how many of you know what we call them possum grapes?
Yeah.
Okay, they were called possum grapes, winter grapes. They're hard to find anymore. So I know where there is some, I know where there's a few, but they're not ready. They have to be frosted on, just like a persimmon, before you use them. The grape dumpling was made kind of like a noodle. So they would take the grapes after the frost, they get a little sweeter, they take it and the twigs and boil it. Then you, just like you run it through a sieve for the knutsy, you run that through a sieve. And once you get that grape juice boiling, some of them used plain water and made a dough. I use sugar with the grape juice and make my dough. It takes a lot of the grapes to make any juice to make anything with. So you almost would have to get a bushel in order to get. Yeah, there you go. And they, like I said, they have to be frosted on before they're sweet. If you try to get one before then, that's worse than getting a green persimmon. So these, you don't see many anymore. I've seen 2 trees, and I know where one is that I can reach that I can't reach from the other. But I did bring some made with just the regular grape, unsweetened grape juice that you buy off the store, out of the store, so you can taste what a grape dumpling is. Some of the people are now going to Tawny Town when they have their grape festival. They buy their grapes to make jelly with. You can use that same type of grape. It's going to be sweeter, so you don't have to use as much sugar. So that's what a grape dumpling is.
It looks like something like this.
Something like that. There, that's more like mine. So we have samples for you. They are samples of knutsy made with the rice and with the hominy, and then we have some grape dumplings for you to sample.
And you made the dough out of flour, right?
Mm-hmm. Just all-purpose flour with a little bit of grape juice. Like I said, years ago, they just used flour and water and just made a dough out of it.
While you're sampling, I also brought some old-time bean bread. And a little bit of salt. too bad it's not early spring so we could have onions and eggs to the wood.
So was the reason they used the grape juice just for something sweet, more like a dessert?
Yeah.
Rather than cherry dumplings?
Would you repeat that, Sue, what she asked?
She asked if the reason that they had the grape dumplings was because they wanted something sweet. And that's basically what it is. It's a dessert. It's just like a pie without being in a pie. Only with the grapes, they're not quite as sweet as you would get a normal pie. Because you don't add as much sugar. If you add more sugar, you're going to turn it into the thicker soup, and then you make jelly.
So you can make jelly out of this as well?
She's trying to give that back to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I just did.
Mine.
So you make those
Looks
quite
like that
often?
picture.
Me?
Yes, she asked, does she make this quite often? And Sue said, yes, she does.
We could move this back there if you want to through.
No, it's okay. Are there any more questions about these traditional foods? And if not about these, they might be able to answer about something else. I'm not sure.
I was supposed to have a wishy here, but it didn't get here.
Can you talk about it?
Edith can.
Miss Knight, can you talk about the wishy a little
Oh,
bit?
yeah. This time of the year, we have a wild mushroom called wishy. And it has it kind of looks like the top of a broccoli or cauliflower. It has little florets. And sometimes you can find them pretty good size, sometimes they're just small. But they really have a good flavor to them. You take those and you tear it apart, soak it in salt water because they have so many little crevices in there. Those bugs like to get in there too. So you soak it in salt water and then rinse that off. And then when you feel like you've got all the bugs out of there, it's time to fix it. I like to deep fry mine. Just roll it with flour and fry it in deep oil. That's about the only way I fix mine. Do you fix yours in a different way?
I learned
Here's how they're shredded.
I learned something about wild foods, natural foods. Wishy, poke, cochan. You cannot really cook those in oil because there is a toxin in them. And if you cook them in oil, no matter how hot it gets, it will make you sick. Because, how do I know? One of my uncles, when he first became diabetic, the nurses come out and started teaching them only use oil to cook with. My aunt had gathered some cochani and some poke. If I'm cooking wishy or poke or cochan, I'm using lard or bacon grease that gets hot enough to actually destroy the toxin. So, you know, the choice is yours, but I prefer not to get sick over my food.
Any questions?
Where do those grow?
He said, where do those grow?
They will grow anywhere on a tree. Usually it's a dead tree or one that's dying. You can find them on toward the base of the tree, at the foot of the trunk, or at a fallen tree. There's been a few times that you can find them on a log, similar to that size, that's just been cut. There are several types of wild mushroom. Of course, you have the morels that everybody knows. You have the wishy. There's an owl head, that slick head there. There is a puffball. There's also one called a deer antlers. A lot of people, what I call an owl head, will call them a hoot owl because they're two pieces together, just like an owl's eyes. So that's a morel. And you find those in the spring. They just pop up, especially after warm rain.
But they're only up for a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and they're only up for a day until they're too dry to eat.
That's true.
We usually find them around Easter time,
Mm-hmm.
if it rains.
Yeah. The wood. I was trying to see. I don't see. This would be more of the puffball in the bottom that they would get.
Right here.
Yeah, because the white one, what we look for, or what they always told me to look for, was look underneath at the ribbing. If it runs like a little rib, that's a good mushroom to eat. But if it's not, don't eat it. Like that.
Like
Membrane.
on the bottom.
Mhm. See? They would always tell me to look for that and make sure that it was that way. And like with any, like you do the wishing, you soak any mushroom. And it's better to soak it anywhere from an hour to overnight, if, depending on its size or how many you have. And that's to remove any insects, any dirt, whatever happens to be in that mushroom. And
You
right
soak
now,
it in salt water?
uh-huh. And you'll find when you're soaking them, they'll float. So my mom always taught me to put a plate down, put something on that plate to hold it down, to hold them in the water. That way they stay in there. She usually soaked hers overnight before we ate them.
So can you freeze the mushrooms?
You can freeze it. Once you've had it, got it shredded and had it soaked, you can freeze it.
Do you freeze it? I always froze it inside the brine solution.
We never did.
You just, right, just, okay.
That way, whenever you thought it's moist, all you have to do is flour it, salt and pepper it, and fry it.
So is this the deer antler?
The deer antler looks just like a deer's horn. Yeah.
That's a deer antler right there.
That's a real deer antler.
There's meat behind that one.
We need some meat with that one. Uh-huh. Yeah. They're hard to find anymore. Last year, one of my friends' son found a few. And it's the first one they had found in years. Just like like with the grapes or anything like that, due to people clearing land, spraying, they're killing it out. So they're beginning to be harder and harder to find.
Is there any way you could grow those yourself? If you could get the...
If you probably could get a spore started and have that same type of soil or ground, yeah.
And I was always taught when we're gathering to shake them out,
Mm-hmm.
so that you'll know where to come back.
Mm-hmm. And today, I know several of my friends, when they find a wishy, even if you stake it,
I've done that.
two-legged deers.
And if somebody knows where there's some, they won't tell you either, where they found that.
Any more questions, guys? Any questions at all on traditional foods?
Do not eat the pokeberry. Pokeberries are poisonous.
But they make a good dye for the basket weed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you twice boil your poke, or?
She asked if you boiled the poke twice, and Sue said yes.
Some of them do. It's
Some
better
people-
that way. The first time you do it, it's clean. And the
Right.
second time, you've made sure that there's nothing in it. And you can, after you boil it, what I do is after I boil it, I have hot grease, switch it from the boiled pan to the hot frying pan, scramble it up with some eggs, and then I'm through.
You sure better know where you're getting that poke.
I like to
Yep.
take just the top.
Well, they're making me hungry.
The rest.
Well,
into a row.
Well, you can do that, but there's a lot of the elders from the way back that still like fried poke stock. To them, that's just like eating okra. In fact, I have a couple of friends that they'd rather have the stock than the poke.
In the green.
Mhm.
You get their watercress too,
Mhm.
same time with Cochani.
Mhm. Yep.
And you get all the ticks and chiggers you can carry.
Yep.
Copperheads.
Watch out
Water
for the
moccasins.
snakes.
Especially if you're around the springs.
Well, I'm sorry for the folks viewing this online, but we're going to cut away and we're going to eat some of this. So that's the good part of being face-to-face instead of online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good night, everyone online. Thank you, Miss Knight, and thanks, Sue. I'll go.